Hello, everyone. My name is Sean Ong. Today, I'm very honored and proud to be up here with some wonderful community leaders. Today, we're going to actually have a panel talking about what it takes to foster and grow a developer community, especially in the mixed reality space. Uh, I am Sean, founder of Ong Innovations, down actually just about an hour south of here in Tequila, an app development and innovation agency primarily focused on mixed reality. Years ago, I was also president of the VR AR Association here in Seattle and have done some community activities. And I'm really excited to hear from Joe and Ivana and Jesse. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna have them each introduce themselves, and then we'll get started with some exciting questions that I have here on this paper.
Hey everybody. Whoa. Hey, morning. I'm Joe. I live here like 12 minutes away in Redmond. Okay, so a little story time, I guess, about my background. First kind of experience, the aha moment, for me in spatial technologies was right after graduation, 2013. A friend at work brought in a VR device and like was able to do a roller coaster demo, and it just blew my mind what it did, and it got all these wheels turning. And like ever since then, I've just been trying to find new ways to like be involved in XR, in VR or AR, and I've had a fun background in like location-based entertainment with the Void, doing VR esports and organizational kind of event planning. VR esports is a thing, and then dipping into, oh man, 2017 was all about like Utah VR. This was a total just like starting with 5 people, hyper local kind of meetup group, and then growing from there. And then I got really lucky with a local commercial production studio in Salt Lake City called Cosmic. They had a bunch of clients asking for like, hey, we want VR work, but they didn't have anyone to manage it. And so I got to kind of that was my first step into developer relations. I wasn't doing the development work, but I had to outsource and kind of find people to make the projects for us. That was a lot of fun. That was my, again, first kind of dipping my toes into DevRel. And then went on to Magic Leap, doing developer relations down in South Florida in Plantation. And then decided to move, sell everything, and drive up to Pacific Northwest and landed here in Redmond, where then I worked with Tilt5 for a year, doing developer relations with them and getting a bunch of. I'm not sure, if you've had a chance to see Tilt5, but it was all about like porting games from Steam over to Tilt5 using their SDK. And then currently now I'm with Niantic working on their new Lightship AirDK platform, and also doing developer relations and finding new dev teams to kind of make cool stuff and break the ground with new technology. So yeah, excited to be here, and just thank you. It's like 10 a.m. on a Thursday, this beautiful day, and thanks for being here, everybody. Yeah. Oh, you got one.
Hola, hello. Okay, there it goes. I said hola because I'm from Argentina. My name is Ivana Tilka. I'm a Microsoft MVP. I'm pretty sure you guys already heard about that. It's like an award that Microsoft gives to some of the people that they think they have a lot of understanding on their technology. I also work as an innovation evangelist at a company called 3XM Group. And I'm also going to try to tell a short story of how I started or jump into this. I actually got a gift from a mentor that works on Microsoft, and it was an Azure Connect. And so that was the beginning of getting into holograms, and then started developing with MRTK, jump into Jesse. And I built a community with a group of friends. We are like 12,000 persons in that community. We are streaming online on YouTube the entire year since COVID hit. And every day and every time we have the opportunity, we try to encourage people to start developing in XR. That starting streaming came with a lot of customers to my company, and we are actually right now developing a lot with Emerticate for our customers, so that's a plus. And that's it for me.
Awesome. And, I'm Jesse Mcculloch. I actually work here at Microsoft on our developer ecosystem team for mixed reality. And I got my start actually with HoloLens, with the first HoloLens. Brand new product. I watched it get announced. I got super excited. I was doing server-side JavaScript in enterprise, not exciting at all. But I had no 3D background, no experience with Unity or anything like that. But I applied to get the HoloLens 1 when I saw it, and thought I had no chance because I had no background and no experience and no idea what I was going to do with it. And then lo and behold, I was in the first wave of developers to get it. And so started building a community around it, because when you're like the first 20 people to have a device like HoloLens, there's no like going to Stack Overflow and saying, hey, how do I do this? Because nobody's done it. So started building a community and started working with some of the employees on the mixed reality team at Microsoft to help grow that community and work my way into a job.
Fantastic. Yeah. Thank you, Jesse. So before I start drilling our panelists over here, I want to take a moment as a mixed reality developer myself and a community member myself to really thank you, Jesse, and also the entire mixed reality team for putting on this in-person event. So yeah, if we could give them a big round of applause, the entire mixed reality team. This is fantastic, right? Being able to come here in person, connect with the mixed reality team, learn about MRTK3 and all the wonderful accomplishments and things that are coming. Really fantastic. So let's start. I guess, I'm going to just ask questions, and it can be popcorn style. So if you feel like you have an answer, feel free to grab the mic and answer. So my first question is, starting something from nothing, I imagine, can be very challenging. Tell us some stories about how hard is it to start a community from nothing? And do you feel like it is more difficult to grow a community that already exists or to start a community that doesn't yet exist?
Can I kick it off? Is that okay? All right. Oh, man. Okay, so this is kind of fun. It was 2015, and I was coming back from, I had a startup I was running in Denmark. And, we ran out of cash and came home. And the next question was well, what are you going to do next, Joe? And I was just thinking through this and trying to figure it out. I found out that there was this company called The Void just down the street from me. This is in central Utah, where I lived at the time. And rather than going in and as a fanboy to be like, hey, I want to talk to you, I didn't really know how to approach them as an organization, or as someone just trying to break into the space. So I started looking at local meetup groups, and there weren't any. And so me and my buddy, kicked off Utah VR, and that afternoon I called The Void. Hey, I'm Joe from Utah VR, Utah's premier meetup group, the only one by de facto, the largest at the time. And with this, it just became kind of an organization to organization discussion, oh, we'd love to be help introduce you to local developers and talent and animators and designers that are here from the universities and provide value to you. And that got an invitation, for me and my partner to go to their location, check it out, and actually start talking to them. So starting a community is super easy, okay? Is the lesson here. Literally anyone can do this. You can start a Discord server, you can start a Slack instance, you can start whatever your channel is, your medium of gathering and communicating with others. That's the easy part, and there's a beautiful thing, and I'm glad the barriers to entry to doing that are actually really low. The challenge really is in growing the community in meaningful ways. And oftentimes it comes down to really practical things like budget. Do I have budget to actually do programming or do events or do interesting things to provide engagement opportunities? And if you don't have budget like most people trying to run communities, then it's just time. It's a time commitment, unless it's part of your day-to-day with what you're doing with work. It's an added kind of just, it's something that you just have to kind of build into what you're doing. And that's a time commitment. And I'm really grateful for all the community members out there, large and small, that find ways to do that outside their general job description and are dedicating, part of their lives to just upkeeping, maintaining, building, growing, cultivating meaningful relationships. So in a short answer, yeah, growing communities is definitely a challenge.
From my point of view, I took the same path almost as Joe. We started creating content just because we needed to solve a problem, and we put the content online. And after that, we got a lot of information, comments, mails, and everything on people asking, okay, how do I do this? And then we decided to create the community because, okay, we saw that there was an amount of people interested in this technology that we never thought that there would be because it was new. In Latin America specifically, you don't have the possibility to reach these kind of devices so easily. So we just started streaming and the community just started growing and growing. And something important that maybe we can also discuss later is the devices. It's not necessary to have actually a device. So when people joined and started seeing the content, they saw that they didn't need to invest on a device to learn. So that motivated more to get into the technology.
Yeah, again, starting a community, when you consider that you can start it by yourself as the only community member and then start growing it, as Joe said, super easy. And that's exactly what we did with Holo Developers. And I think for all of, as developers, that we like pride ourselves on being introverts who don't like talking to other people. We love being parts of communities. And so if the community is there, people will show up for it. And especially if you are providing a space for them to go build relationships, because programming is such a isolating activity. It's just like you and a computer. And so being able to have friends who understand that isolation and those challenges, and can talk through not only the technical challenges, but also just like becoming friends. Like there's so many community members that I become friends of. And then as your community grows and you move into jobs that are doing, dev relations, at a certain point you realize that like you can only personally scale so far. Like you can only run so big of a community. And then it becomes a matter of like, how do you build communities of communities? And that's when we start talking about the real scale of developer communities, is when you can start working with multiple communities and how those grow and spread over time.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Jesse. So as a developer community member myself, I know I have my own selfish reasons for wanting to be part of a community, mostly answering hard questions and getting answers to hard questions. Sometimes I'll type a question and I'll literally just stare and wait for somebody to reply. You want that instant, which we obviously don't always get. But as leaders and organizers of developer communities, what do you feel is the purpose of a community? What are your hopes and aspirations? What do you feel like you really want to see from all of the members that are part of a developer community?
I think, a lot of what I strive for is connecting people together, and as you start managing a community and people start telling you what they're doing, you start seeing patterns and or projects that somebody's working on that somebody else is working on something similar or would be a good fit. And it's making those introductions of like, oh, you should go talk to so-and-so. Let me make an introduction for you. Let me start that conversation. And I think that's, the real value of these communities is not like the individual projects and the individual help, but making the connections between people and helping, helping everybody. Like this industry is so new, and as we grow it and people are start building cool stuff and putting it out there on YouTube or Twitter or TikTok or wherever, like that generates interest beyond just our developers. And that's how we move this out of like this niche community that it is and into the mainstream.
In my case, it's more like I have like a lot of objectives. One is to change people's life. I know it sounds like pretty dreamy, but I got into a position in which I was almost bored in my job, and when I jumped into this, I felt that passion of something new or innovation. I don't know, to create things that were not created yet. And when it comes to the community by itself, it's like Jesse said, they get people, get into groups, they know each other, and they can share when they have a problem. They just, oh, I know who to call, I know who to chat. And it's like a networking without being together or meeting. Maybe you can meet our MVP community have members from all over the world. And I was talking to Jesse, I get pretty along with someone that is, I know it's in Europe, and that's what it's all about.
This is a fantastic question, and like I think I'll try to answer it in a couple ways, like both from like me as an individual, like what's my purpose, you know, and then like organizationally, how different teams kind of try to approach the same question. So for me, I'm a very purpose-driven individual. And by this, I mean, like, I'm highly motivated by, you know, mission statements of companies and like meaningful actions they're taking towards these mission statements. So for me, I love travel, I love languages and cultures, and like putting myself in new contexts that like totally challenge and permanently, you know, positively impact my paradigm on just life, you know, the universe and everything, right? And what that means for me is like Niantic's mission is to inspire people to explore the world together, right? So like the micro version of that for community development is doing that together. Like, how do we build cool stuff together? How do we build meaningful solutions and technologies together? How do we positively impact this world that we live in? Everything you like look around you and see you, everything physical, everything digital was made by somebody no smarter than you and I, you know, or maybe just a little bit than me. And just like this is the beautiful thing about the technologies that we're playing with is they're incredibly powerful, but like impactful on day-to-day lives, you know? And especially because we're literally hijacking people's perceptive systems in positive ways, you know, like that's a big responsibility to make sure that we're, you know, thinking about these in our creations. So organizationally though, there's a lot of ways like why DevRel or why communities. So one is super practical. Product teams often are just not connected close enough to their end user. There's just like multiple layers of disconnect, time and space, location, region, whatever, and they need feedback loops. The greatest way to get feedback loops is to just be closely integrated, tied in, and have a community, you know, that's providing critical feedback, insights, feature roadmap, wish lists, you know, like here's what's broken in your documentation, people commenting on your docs and on everything. Like that is the life source of any meaningful product, is having a group of humans that are actually using it in real life, not in a product vacuum, right? So I think there's a super practical purpose for communities like from that perspective. A couple other like meaningful business objectives there too are just like growing an ecosystem, period. Like, how do you push something towards greater adoption? There are a million tools and solutions out there for all sorts of technologies, software, hardware, and firmware. And like, how do you grow that in a meaningful way? And that, as Jesse said, is just like this human connection. And so you do that by providing meaningful activities, resources, interactions. And I've just found that like, even the developers that really just want like, just look at these docs. All I want is docs. I don't actually want to talk to anybody in the company. That's okay, you know, but you need docs to do that. You need to be able to communicate to the developer where to find the documentation or how they can add their own thinking to it. And I'm still bummed, like with Stack Overflow today, like, you know, how many years have we been working in XR? But like these like super practical ways that developers often find solutions are just not widespread throughout XR at all. So like finding answers is just such a pain in the butt, you know? And so as DevRel and community members, like I don't have all the solutions, but as a group, you know, we have solutions and we need to knowledge share as best we can. So like that's the beauty of it, right?
When I first started at Microsoft doing this job, I was like, I'm going to go poll our community members and find out like where I should focus my attention. Is it, you know, docs? Is it training videos? Is it workshops? Is it, I'm going to find the one place that everybody wants me to go do all this work. And I get the results back and it's like 20%, 20%, 20%. I'm like, that was super like not useful, but also at the same time, like really eye-opening that everybody's got a different way of like consuming all of your content. And there's no like one place that you get to go focus. Like it'd be really nice if there was like this golden ticket, you know, like here's where I'm going to go spend all of my budget to make this super awesome. No dice.
Fantastic. Yeah, great responses. And Ivana, you were saying like changing people's lives. And as you were saying that, it made me reflect back at how the community that I was part of early on, which was the Holo Developer Slack, that really did literally change my life. You know, some clients that I met early on who wanted to do projects, even before I was an agency, back when I was just tinkering around with the HoloLens, I met them through the forum, through the Slack. And then when I grew to the point where I needed to hire people, I went to the Slack, and some of my best friends from the MR industry, I still have, to this day. I met them on the Holo Developer Slack and eventually met them in person. And yeah, just thinking back through, like, that community is so important and literally has life-changing potential and industry growing potential. So yeah, thank you for that. Great responses. All right, let's change the gears for a little bit and talk about some of the challenges. One of the first questions for challenges I have is, as your community grows, of course, that means more people, which may also mean some interesting characters. So what do you do with maybe some interesting characters or difficult people, and how do you foster a community that is diverse and also inclusive?
I think it starts with the people who are running the community, and they can totally set the vibe, and they can really grow a community, or they can really suffocate a community. And we've seen this, across tech altogether. You hear of communities that have toxic leadership, and you can be the most brilliant person in the world, and that will run a community for a long time. But eventually, people get tired of dealing with it, and so they'll leave. And so I think it's really up to us as community leaders to kind of set that tone for what's acceptable. And I think overall tech is changing in this. Definitely not fast enough for my tastes, but we're getting better at being more inclusive, and what we'll tolerate as behavior from our community members. So I think it's important to set the tone and then just be really, really vigilant and make sure that whatever those community guidelines are, that your community will tolerate, that you're sticking to them. I found for mixed reality, generally, I don't know if it's because it's a newer technology and the people who are in it also subscribe to kind of the values that I have, or if they subscribe to the values that I have, and that's why we're in the same communities. I don't know how that, that chicken and egg problem. But I found that generally I don't have to do a whole ton of moderation, which is wonderful. But when I do have to do it, it's swift, and it's like, okay, you're being toxic, we're done. There's no questions. It's like, we've got to stop this and make sure that everybody knows it's not acceptable.
This is a really cool question. So kind of like how to cultivate or grow diverse communities. Totally agree with Jesse in that companies need to hire diverse individuals to drive that direction. That has been a game changer in different organizations that I've seen. Oftentimes it's just without a diverse team of leadership, it's just, you don't think about, or companies and organizations don't think about diversity often enough. So you need internal representation to champion diversity, and then that will help kind of create diverse ecosystems. As far as moderation, bad actors, how do you keep and maintain kind of a positive community? Trying to go into it with a very positive mindset that assume positive intent is kind of what I try to lead my own personal interactions with, and that's led me to some cool conversations with folks I might otherwise have just slammed that band hammer on, So one, I guess short story, and this was with Tilt 5, pretty active Discord community, and there was one dude that you can tell he's very, very technical, really is a big fan of the technology, and usually you'll see this in communities where the most perceived toxic individuals are often huge fans of the technology sometimes, which is interesting. But this also kind of engenders a little bit of a form of entitlement almost, or just I'm a community member, I have a lot of voice, therefore I deserve your ear time or you to listen to me. Kind of this relationship dynamic that you have to kind of set expectations for, and that's where I think a lot of the challenges come. So this individual was always and we were pretty friendly at Tilt 5, and having our engineers on the Discord server available to answer direct questions. And this guy was really kind of relentless with just why isn't this available? When is this coming? What are the timelines? Why isn't this fixed yet? And it quickly became you could see that this was just kind of descending, and it just felt like souring the pool a little bit. And so I had to pull him, and this is my tactic. It's not for everybody, okay? But this is there's only so much you can really do in a group environment. So really pulling someone aside and just having a one-on-one when possible, even a video chat with somebody just to be like, what's going on? Like, love having you here. There's a positive community, but help me understand what you're really trying to get out of this relationship. And like pulling it away just out of like the message text faceless format into like a personal one-to-one relationship can do wonders, you know? So like sometimes this can help salvage and save relationships and actually create like continued kind of internal champions with better behaviors, you know? So that's made a huge difference for me. And what I found out is this guy is actually just making a wiki. He was just making a wiki. You know, he's asking he's grilling our team members because he's making a wiki and needed to just know all these different facets of details. I thought he was just like some psycho that just wanted to know every freaking detail and was like burning our time. No, he was actually trying to be supportive, you know, and like build a wiki and a meaningful resource for other community members, you know. So, but you can't get that sometimes out of just the text conversation. There's so much missed in translation sometimes. So kind of pulling that out a little bit and then trying to build up the personal relationship can do a lot. It does not scale well, okay? I will say that too, but when possible, try to assume positive intent and then pull that into personal like conversations to see if it's something that can be salvaged. But if not, and if there's repeated behaviors, then as Jesse said, then you gotta, you know, unhealthy relationships and draw boundaries. So, yeah.
Well, from my place, it's not difficult to be a woman in technology. That's something that needs to be said. And in our community, we usually have toxic people that when they see a woman talking to them about technology, it's like, oh, okay, stop talking, let the guy speak because he knows more or something like that. And part of what we give as a tool in our technology is that we need to have soft skills also in order to work as a team. So part of the soft skills is also to be considered with the other. We are all equals. And in our community, I'm speaking or my partners are speaking, but sometimes we let people speak as part of the members of our community. So we are all equals. We only are the owners of the YouTube channel or the platform in which we are talking to them. But that's it. Probably we have people that have more knowledge than us in our community than us, and they are helping us. And when we face a situation in which someone is toxic in our community, we usually put that person aside and we meet with them. So we ask them, what are your goals? What are you trying to accomplish? So we try to get and be a kind of a psychologist with them to help them improve because they are creating a problem in our community, and that might be also happening in their work or in their family. So we usually try to give our community not only technology tools, but also this kind of tool that help them be a better professional, a better person around everyone. Now, if that doesn't work, of course, we have the situation, we have our values on our page, and we have everything displayed that this is not something that goes with the values of our community, and that's it. That's not happened until now, but that's the end, I would say.
That's fantastic. Thank you. So this next question's a little bit, it's a short question, but it's a loaded question. Specifically in the mixed reality industry, what would you say are the greatest challenges for fostering a community or a developer community? And just, you know, thinking about the journey of where mixed reality has come, AR, VR, we've been on a very interesting trajectory over the last, I think back the last 5 or 10 years, right? So specifically for the mixed reality industry, what are your greatest challenges?
I can start with that one. The device. People not having the possibility to experience a device in which they are developing is a huge problem, as I mentioned before. We do have in MRTK and other tools, we have like testing possibilities on the PC, but the feeling of actually having the device is not the same. In my case, for example, I didn't have a HoloLens until a year ago, and I am developing with MRTK for 2.5 years. But I do know, and that's like a plus in here marketing, but MRTK also works in other platforms like mobile. So in our company, we decided, okay, let's start building things for mobile And then when we get the possibility to get a HoloLens, we will move and try all the things that we did for mobile to HoloLens. So that's the thing. Everyone has a mobile phone. So it was easy for our community to test something, at least with a mobile. And then when they get a Oculus or when they get a HoloLens or whatever device they get, they know already the experience, they know already the technology. So it's not a blocker after all, but they do need to experience what is having a HoloLens and touching the holograms, I would say.
I'll go. A lot of challenges.
Yeah, I don't know why Sean thought this was the short question.
No, yeah.
Like, from my perspective, I could talk all day on this point.
To me, it really boils down to like, how do you grow a product ecosystem that's friendly for different use cases and user segments, right? And there's so many to address. I think that's a challenge, is identifying those meaningful user segments and just like catering to these in awesome ways. If you try to make something for everybody, then you're making something for nobody. And so it's this really interesting challenge from like the product development side. How do you prioritize that, right? So like, absolutely agree that with hardware can be a major constraint to community growth. I experienced that at Magically, just having, not a cheap device available was a major barrier. And then like sales were only available in certain countries. Tilt 5 also, as a company, just like in the process of fulfilling Kickstarter orders, you can only do so much sometimes to grow a developer ecosystem with a limited number of hardware that's just available on hand. But I mean, you can do a lot, even with limited hardware. There's still a lot you can do. There's mock and like simulation tools on the software side that can be created to kind of facilitate as a stopgap. Sometimes evangelism teams can take hardware, like 30 kits, and then go on site for like a 2-3 day workshop, at a local like XR hub, and do like trainings and workshops. Like, so there's a lot you can still do to grant access or short-term access to hardware, but it's still kind of slow movement, right? But I really think like, okay, so I have a lot of friends who are web developers, and they look at the XR space like it's another freaking planet sometimes. And it's just like, hey, yeah, all you got to do is download Unity, and it's just like, that is a nightmare for all of my web developer friends. That is just, it's a deal breaker. It's a non-starter for so many talented developers out there. And so like, I'm really pleased to see more groups, companies, organizations like, creating these open standards, and OpenXR is doing a lot for that. WebXR, WebAR, like these are opening pathways for tons of developers to just start making stuff. But without that, you're really kind of narrowing your potential and just like addressable market to a really specific audience. I love what Snap's doing with like Lens Studio in low code environments, and being able to allow access to XR development for like designers and artists and creatives that maybe like code is not their way to express their interests, but they're able to have access to meaningful tool sets to do that. And I see more companies kind of like trying to find ways to also create friendly tooling for, that sweet spot between development and design. Yeah, tons of challenges, but I think at the end of the day, it's like, do we know who our audience is, and are we doing enough to really meet their needs? So like, who's your audience? Who are you trying to work with? And it's okay to say, well, we want all the developers under our umbrella. That's okay to say, but you can't get there all at once. So you really got to start somewhere and then make ground, make adjustments, have that feedback loop from the product, be actively kind of communicating back and forth. Try to expose some of your roadmap to, get sentiment, interest, coming in the next 2-3 quarters. What are the top items here that you'd love to see next to solve your problems? Try and inform that roadmap as much as possible, while also kind of having a meaningful strategy internally to drive that forward. Yeah, I just said a bunch of stuff, but like, knowing your people is such a key to just growing a community. If you don't know your community and you're not getting these inputs and data information from these relationships, it's just hard to grow a community, period. So get to know your people, and respond to them in meaningful ways. Yeah.
I'm going to come at this from a little bit different angle. And I think one of the hard things is we are such a young industry, and we look at ourselves and we compare ourselves to these really mature industries like the PC industry or the phone industry. And if we actually think back to where they were at the same point in their development, today, web development, getting into web development is like relatively easy. You can do it on a PC, you can do it on a phone, you can do it on a tablet. It takes a browser and somewhere that you can write text in, and you can do web development. And it hasn't always been that way. Like, those tools had to evolve, and the proliferation of mobile phones. Like, when the iPhone first dropped, you couldn't go into a Verizon store and have it like subsidized by Verizon and get it for a couple $100 or $12 a month or whatever it is. Like, you had to go buy this $1,500 device to get started with it, and that was like even before they were talking to developers, and it was just like this device that was really cool to have. So the hardware is absolutely an issue, and I think that will hopefully eventually just become something that as it becomes more mainstream and more consumer friendly, and subsidized by telcos or whoever, that will become easier. But today it's absolutely a huge issue, and same issues. Like, and not only that, but like, yes, I can take 20 devices out and do a workshop and get those 20 developers super excited, and then I'm taking those devices home, and what are they going to do? Like, are they going to make that investment in buying a $3,500 HoloLens or a Magic Leap 2 or whatever device it is? So how do you excite them and then not just leave them hanging and without a path forward? And then once they make that investment, like, there's got to be a market to sell into, and that's also a really hard thing, is the commercialization right now. So there's like all these layers and layers and layers of challenges, and really it's up to us as Microsoft and all these other companies to kind of push the entire technology stack so that all these problems just become a little easier over time. So it's not the instant gratification answer that like everybody wants, and when's the next device coming? Because that, as soon as the next device gets released, you will have somebody asking, well, when's the next one coming? Like, and hardware is not an easy, fast, every 3 months we're going to release the next thing. So trying to chase those answers is just dooming yourself to failure. And I think that's harder on people who lead communities, who are like constantly bombarded by that stuff. So just being able to internalize that you're never going to be able to answer that question to somebody's satisfaction, and knowing that you're doing what you can in that moment.
Fantastic. Yeah, it's interesting that the theme here is about the hardware as well. And it actually made me remember one of the first communities that I was part of, MR communities, even before Holo Developer Slack was created. And honestly, I think it was even before the devices started to be shipped out, the HoloLens 1 devices, was the Windows Holographic User Group, run by Dwayne Lamb. He's actually sitting right back over there, and they would meet once a month. And I think later when they tried to rename holographic to Windows Mixed Reality, the acronym was going to be Win Mugger instead of Win Hugger. But I remember when I got my first HoloLens 1 device, shortly after that, that Windows Holographic User Group announced that they would have, to support the community, some loaner devices out, HoloLens loaner devices. And right around that same time, I started seeing requests for, hey, number one, it's pretty rare to find HoloLens developer, let alone a HoloLens developer with 2 HoloLenses. But I would see this post, hey, we're desperate, we want to create a multi-user application. Are there any developers out there? And I was like, well, I've got one HoloLens, but you can't make a multi-user application with one HoloLens. So I approached Dwayne. I'm like, hey, that loaner device, can I get it for a week? Man, those were nights filled with me ripping out my hair, trying to figure out what are anchors. How do you network 2 people together? Okay, the thing is showing up in the same place, but his avatar. I would approach him and like, Dwayne, I need this for another week. And I'd come back a week later, Dwayne, can I have it for another week? Back in the early days, we're always so optimistic, right? When quoting our projects, we're like, oh yeah, I can get this done in 3 days. Turns out to be 3 months. But yeah, it just reminded me the importance, what you were saying, of access to hardware and how a community, can be that place where that could be one of the advantages of being part of a community and offering that to community members as well. All right, so for communities that are growing or maybe have already grown, do you feel like communities or mixed reality communities can become stale after a while, or can they die? And what are things that you can do to prevent that from happening? How can you keep a community alive and vibrant?
Yeah, I mean that's definitely one of the bigger challenges that we face is when I started out, and it speaks to that optimism of like the unknown. When HoloLens 1 first came out, we were so optimistic that like, oh yes, this is going to be mainstream in like 2 years, and it's going to be awesome. And so like all these user groups sprouted up all around the country, and now that we're 5 years into this, it's really hard when there's not like constant news, for it to be like solely based off of a single technology. So like a bunch of them were like literally like HoloLens user groups. And as Microsoft, I cannot release news to everybody monthly as much as I would love to. We're just not to that point in our cycle yet where we've got something super awesome to talk about every month. And so it's, and I think diversification of the technology that we're talking about and talking more broadly about mixed reality or XR, AR, really kind of helps to be able to have that excitement level and keep it up more than having a single technology. And I think that people always assume that like us as Microsoft, we're competing super hard against Magic Leap and Niantic and all these other companies that are in the space. And to a degree, we are, but we're also super friendly. Like, I've known Joe for a couple of years. I know a bunch of the people at Magic Leap. I know a bunch of the people at Valve and Meta and stuff. And like we talk and we're friends, and we're really more, at least in the DevRel space, our job is to empower developers to go create cool stuff. And so if I can work with Joe and put something on where our developers come together and create cool stuff, regardless of which technology they're using, like that's a bonus for me. Like I'm all about that. And most of the people that work in this space are the same way. So that's where I see like, that diversification and us not being so like, it's got to be Microsoft because, we're whatever. Like that's not the way to build these healthy communities and grow them and sustain them. And I think as a developer, like, going in on a single technology in this industry at this point in this industry is like insane because nobody's got enough market share. So if you're not looking at all the different options there and doing what's best for your customers or your product, you're really doing yourself a disservice. Yes, I would absolutely love if you're using Microsoft stuff in that mix, but it's not realistic for me to think that you're only going to use our stuff.
In our case, we create content and events all the time. And you might have a question on can you put that with your work and how do you balance that?
How do you do that?
How do you do that? I'm a superwoman. No, but actually, when we see someone in our community that is developing something or learning something, we put them in the spot. So we give them the opportunity to share something with the community. So I think that not only motivates the person that is speaking and sharing what they are working on, but also the other persons are getting content the entire time. So that's how it flows. And we do have like two like courses we give free every year. We stream one in March and the other one in September. And this year was the first year we didn't do it because we were with a lot of work. And people are asking, even though it's the same course, people are asking us to give the same course again because they don't only feel comfortable seeing the content, but also they have the excuse to meet. So that's it from my part.
There's so many fun ways, I think, to kind of continue to, I don't know, what do you call it? Like, not revitalize, but just to continue pump energy into a community. I've killed a community, not single-handedly, but like it was when I was running Utah VR with a close group of friends, and we were like not very well organized. And I took a job, out of state, and I was not in Utah anymore to work with Utah VR, and it just kind of, fell away. But what's cool is that like new forms and new groups and new individuals kind of step up and try to lead stuff. And that makes me a little sad inside, that there's that it's not there anymore. But it's okay because I think the community is still being served just through other means. But like a couple cool examples that I've seen. So Magic Leap was a fun experience for like we did a lot of workshops. That was a very like proactive thing that we did. But one thing that we saw was like there was this kind of bottom line metric, like we're getting a lot of like 2-day experiments, we're getting like these short demos, familiarization with our docs is happening, right? Like how can we get more content onto the store? Because product like cycles, development cycles take a long time. For like funded companies and companies trying to build like a product on top of a platform, that's like a, conservatively 6 to 12 month like site development cycle, if not longer. And so something fun that we did at Magic Leap was called Concepts. What we saw is that we were doing a lot of hackathons and jams, but like these would just kind of live and die with the jam. They get judged and then they would just be gone, right? They wouldn't see the light of day. These builds would just pass away, with the ephemeral internet, right? And like, so what we tried to do is create like a fast track where developers could take their builds from these hacks and jams, put it through this kind of fast track publishing cycle, and then get into the app store with a specific tag called Concepts. And it's like an experimental section in the app store for Magic Leap. And that was a really cool way to put like way more energy into this ecosystem where suddenly it's like, I'm not just killing myself over a weekend at this jam. Developers definitely do that. But man, I can actually be like a published developer on this platform now. Like that became a really meaningful like way to connect with developers, was to drive towards that. Niantic has been fantastic with programming. And I'm less involved on the programming side, but I still get to do quite a bit here. So on the programming side, it's like, I want to say there's like a monthly challenge, it's either a hackathon or a game jam. There's always a theme. There's always like a meaningful prize, whether that's cash or something else. So it does involve budget. But what this does is a few things. It allows like the marketing team to really like put some energy behind it to try and just get general awareness, spread the message in good word. Here's what's happening in the ecosystem. There's a lot of beats, and a lot of buzz that's happening around these certain things. These create assets that can be reused and shared in other meaningful contexts. It allows us a platform to, like, every team, Jesse, on your team, like, there's lots of tools and features that developers can use. Sometimes there's new features that get created by really talented teams, but then developers just don't know about them. And so there's often a disconnect sometimes between product and marketing. And so having active programming is an awesome way to be like, here's a new jam that's happening this month. Here is the new and latest feature with the documentation around it. And then we have this kind of themed prize and event, based on this thing. And that can do a lot to kind of just keep activity going. But really, at the end of the day, it's like meeting developers where they're at, finding meaningful ways to, like, what do you want to do with the technology? What's exciting for you? Is it a hackathon? Is it a jam? Is it something else? Is it just having lunch on campus with us to meet and greet with the team? Is it video tutorials or like live streams? Like every company kind of has a different, way to approach this question. But bottom line, you got to know your people and like know what they want and then try to work with that.
20% of them want lunch, 21% of them.
It's about the food, the free food, right? No, but this topic is dear to my heart because one community that's withered is actually the local Seattle VR community. Prior to COVID, it used to be a very vibrant community. We had, I think, like 4 hackathons a year, hundreds and hundreds of people. We had the Seattle VR meetup, the East Side VR meetup. There were like so many different VR meetups, and it was all the same people migrating to all all the same events. And what I was shocked about is once COVID hit, the community also started to wither away, which I was really surprised about because of all the communities in the world, you'd think that VR, right, is the type of community that we'd be able to stay together. So it really made me start thinking, Um, do you see a role, as we go further and further into this world of remote work, into this world of Teams and Slack and Discord, and then also the dreaded word metaverse? I don't know if it's dreaded or not, but is there a role that the metaverse can play to kind of help bridge that gap to avoid something like what we're seeing with the Seattle VR community?
I think that COVID's really thrown all of us for a loop, and first not being able to get together in person for a really long time, and I think a lot of when you had those meetups, in this VR, AR, XR space, a lot of it was about like bringing what you had and showing it off, and like, hey, here's my headset, go put it on and go test this out, go try this. Like, there's always the meetup part, the meeting part, whatever presentation it was, and then usually it like devolves or evolves into demos at the end of the night. And like, I think COVID just made people way more conscious of like, here, take this sweaty headset and put it on your face and hope that everything ends up okay. Which, I think eventually we do get to this place with social VR, social AR, and the metaverse and things where we do have those experiences and we are not necessarily having to be in the same space. But I think that, like everything in this space, we want it to happen a lot faster than it's actually going to. And having to figure out what those social norms are and the ethics and the accessibility and everything that goes around with doing things socially and not ending up in a place where you get toxic behaviors because nobody thought about how to moderate it and nobody thought about putting protections in place and nobody thought about all these things that we figured out in real life in-person stuff, and it just isn't quite there yet for the metaverse and for these online interactions. So yes, we'll absolutely get there. It's just how fast are we going to get there, and what do we have to solve for between here and where we can do it and feel like it's the same sort of experience that we have today in person.
I think it will eventually happen. I mean, we talked a couple of minutes ago that with computer, we face the same, like, who is going to have a computer on their desk? Who is going to have a phone call through a cell phone? The same is going to happen. I know that it's not the time right now, but I know it's coming pretty fast. That's for sure, that it's coming faster than with PC and with the cell phone. But I think it's going to happen.
At Niantic, we call it the real world metaverse, not quite the dreaded term, the real world metaverse. And something that I've been really happy to see, not necessarily in the developer community, but just like in the user community, is Pokemon Go Fests are starting back up. There's a huge one happening in Seattle, like next month. Yeah. And like, it's crazy seeing tens of thousands of users gather in a city for like a fun thing to do, like that's a thing. For me, I'm like going on hikes, with like my little family, or like I'll go to the coast to chill at the beach. But like to have like communities of thousands of people going and doing, I mean, you got your Coachellas, you have your concerts and festival series, right? But then seeing like users get together for an app, for a game, like for an activation like that to me is super encouraging. That, well, COVID sucks, but we're on this side of it now. We're like, we've come to an understanding of what we can do as communities, and then moving forward, there's just so much fun to be had. So I'm really happy that we're in 2022 and ready for some more fun.
I mean, Pokemon Go is kind of an interesting experiment to just kind of watch how that has evolved with COVID, because when it first launched, I remember like watching videos of like Bellevue Park and like these massive crowds of people all running to go catch this Pokemon that just appeared and like the insanity that was around Pokemon when it launched. And then again with COVID, it is largely about going out and, having these social interactions, with other players, everybody going to a gym to go, try and beat it. And so like some of the improvements that they made where, you can do it from a little bit further away, or you can do these things remotely, like watching that how the team has thought through those problems and now is like slowly ratcheting those back and bringing out the more social stuff, I think is kind of a great case study for all of us to look at, as like how do you pivot to these things that are unexpected and really shut down the main way you were doing something? So hats off to the company for sure, for being able to think through that stuff. And if anybody wants to add me on Pokemon Go, come find me afterwards, because I'm definitely still playing.
Fantastic. All right, I think we've got enough time for one more question of the morning, and that's, do you have any inspiring stories from any of your developer communities, whether it's a personal story or somebody you know from the community? Any inspiring stories you'd like to share?
Well, as you know, I'm from Argentina. Latin America has a lot of countries that have difficulties on economics, and there is what I was part of an event in a community, and I got a customer that needed to create something with HoloLens, and our company decided to hire people to do that. And there was this student from Venezuela that actually was hired by my company, who learned everything through our community. And now, luckily, he's now earning and working. He's 25 years old. He's just starting, but he's so excited. And nothing. That's something that you think this is not going to happen. The entire circle that you give training on YouTube, someone is going to look at it, and then it's going to have a work that is going to help feed his entire family. So that circle is something that I am proud of, and everyone in our community, everyone is really proud of. I would say that.
Thanks for asking this kind of wrap-up question. There's so much to be proud of, I think, in every community. One that comes to my mind most recently is we just had our Lightship Summit, our own developer conference, like 2 weeks ago in San Francisco, and it was about 4 months of just like straight planning with a pretty big team, and it was a cool show, but like from the outside looking in, like it was like, oh, that was a smooth conference, a lot of cool announcements. Good job, guys. But like, man, behind the scenes, our hairs were on fire. We had 9 live demos happening. Live demos are the scariest thing for any kind of like on stage, live programming, or like at an event when like press is coming through and they're gonna actually try a demo, not just watch a canned video of a demo, but like try a demo. The night before press came in, we came in the morning, and all the iOS devices that we had been charging overnight, congratulations to iOS 15.5. All of them were set for auto update over the night. So it was just like, oh my gosh, like double check, triple check all the apps, make sure they're all working, nothing's broken. The developers themselves were on site to like troubleshoot with us. And also, like, we have what are called wayspots, and these are like localizable anchors that we can set up. But developers weren't able to go and get the map data or the mesh data for these anchors until like a day before, because the way we've set it up is that like we had to kind of finish the preparation, the props and decoration for the event before the scans were gathered. So they're only able to get them like a day, maximum 2 before. And so just like, it made me so proud to see developers just like being so active and like positive and just working towards this end of like, I'm gonna get my demo working. And like, that is the blood, sweat, and tears of the developer experience, of just getting shit done. Sorry, and just like, and like, smiling through it. And it's just, I love that mentality of the grit, and like, developers are amazing, man. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd double down on that, and that, a few things here. So we started off, Sean was asking like why we do this, and Ivana said, to change people's lives. And, it seems like kind of a meta thing and something you don't think about. And it's not something that I'm like, today I'm going to go change somebody's life. But it's amazing how many times like people have come up to me and said, oh, something you talked to me about way early on, I kind of really took that to heart. And now I'm in, this role doing this job, and it's literally changed my life. And I've had that moment too. Like, coming to work at Microsoft has literally changed my life, and it was because of some of the people that I met in this community and whatnot. So, like, to go out and say, oh, I'm going to go change somebody's life is like, okay, yeah, sure you are. but it's the small things that you don't really think about, and it's not something that's even necessarily meaningful to you or you remember, but they absolutely remember it as, kind of this pivotal moment. So making sure that you're kind and welcoming and making sure that there's room for those opportunities to happen is absolutely important. And then to Joe's point, like, so much of like putting on an event like this is about, all this crazy preparation, and there's huge teams behind it that are just behind the scenes and never get thanked. So I'd just like to take a moment to thank all the team behind putting on dev days and, your guys' Lightship stuff, because there's a ton of behind the scenes people who you will never ever see, but are amazing at kind of working to make this stuff happen and pull it off so that it's a great experience for our community, and it all goes off relatively without a hitch. So big round of applause to everybody behind the scenes who does this stuff.
Thank you so much. That's great. And let's give another hand to our panelists here. You guys have been wonderful, amazing. You survived the drill. It's been a great session. Thank you, everyone.